I met you year and a half, 2 years ago,
Yep.
and I'll tell you, I meet a large number of people that apply to Y Combinator, and this is
Yep.
what really stood out to me. A lot of people don't get in, and like
I didn't get in for a
you,
while.
I guess you applied several times. Like, how did you get in? First of all, like, how did that go in the process?
We definitely applied at least, I want to say 4 times or 5 times. But back when you and I met, that was likely the most fortunate trip to San Francisco I had taken as a founder running Cloosiv, in that it actually led to a few kind of monumental meetings, I suppose, both from meeting you at Square and submitting a referral through Y Combinator, which was incredibly helpful, to actually getting to meet with Sam Altman as well and a couple other folks that really just sort of helped gain the steam that we needed. We didn't actually get into YC that time around, but it was the next batch this summer of 19 that we were accepted. But yeah, there were a number of different attempts, structuring of applications, having a bunch of folks who I'd met during that initial trip offered to provide sort of review and guidance as it relates to applying and interviewing and going through that whole process. So it definitely it took a few swings, but we were obviously fortunate to get in and attend.
What was the tenacity to get in? Why Combinator? Why keep applying? Were you local in California?
We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. I think the tenacity is really focused on, I don't know how much time you spent fundraising outside of California, but I'd spent, about a year and a half at that point, sort of scraping coins together, hoping to keep the company afloat. We had this really big vision that we wanted to accomplish, and say that we weren't necessarily shaping the narrative entirely well, but the breed of investor in the Southeast in particular is just very different than what exists, especially in San Francisco, right? So I think the impetus behind applying so often was the reputation of Y Combinator, which if anyone is from San Francisco listening to this, they understand what that is, right? But I still have to explain it to plenty of folks who I meet, because it doesn't carry the same weight. But just given the circle of friends I'd surrounded myself with here, I knew what it was. I knew how impactful it could be on a startup's life cycle, and felt that it was a really great opportunity if we could figure out a way to get in, of course, to keep trying.
You were outside of the Silicon Valley circle, and you were trying to get in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think it's a good way to articulate it right there.
What kinds of advice did you get from people on strategies to get into Y Combinator?
Yeah, so I guess first and foremost, I told him this many times at this point. Like, I'd say Sam Altman is one of the biggest reasons why Cloosiv is still around today. That a fortunate series of events led to the two of us meeting, and he actually then, and this really kind of embodies San Francisco to me now, is he facilitated introductions from there that led to actual investment from multiple people in San Francisco, folks who were just getting started angel investing. Lackey Groom, who is an early employee at Stripe, Laura Behrens-Wu, who is the CEO at Shippo. They both took a risk on me, on Cloosiv and our team. And that those folks in particular really helped to shape what that application process should look like moving forward, right? So having Sam submit referrals is always helpful, right? It carries a little bit of weight. But B, having a clean narrative, a clear vision for what we wanted to accomplish, they helped to suss that out throughout that process.
How does he provide referrals? Does he actually email people he knows, or does he call them up and sort of pitch it on your behalf?
There's actually a tool, and Daniel actually did this for us the first time around as well. There's a tool internally at Y Combinator where you can recommend startups that you think should at least be considered in the batch that they're applying for. So that's what he's been willing to do for us.
You kind of stood out to me just because of your tenacity, and I just thought as a founder, you had an energy about you that really stood out to me. That was like tenacious. You weren't going to give up, and I think that's a quality that I don't know if Y Combinator looks for, but I think successful founders kind of.
It's what they said. So Dalton Caldwell actually called us. If Dalton, the process, we actually got rejected that first time. Didn't go very well. The second time, Dalton had called us and said just about the same thing that you're saying right now. they obviously have a history of, they can see how many times we had applied, how the narrative had changed, the pitch in general, and the willingness to keep taking a swing. And that, in addition to the fact that we had continued to grow as a business, right, the KPIs were moving up and to the right, which is great. That made it a bit easier, but they did cite that as a reason behind bringing us aboard.
What was the original idea?
The original idea was, I'm a first-time founder, first and foremost. So I thought, hey, let's be really ambitious and swing for the fences. And I guess to sum it up, it's, if you guys are familiar with the payment apps in most developed countries like Alipay or Grab or WeChat Pay, those types of products that are really all encompassing to the point where people don't use credit cards or cash to pay for anything. They use their phones, right? The vision was to create this kind of unified commerce application where when you left the house, you didn't need to bring your wallet in the US. It was a little, it was a steep climb to understand just how fragmented the payments system is in the US and how difficult it would be to accomplish with two processors that would never allow that to happen, first and foremost. But secondly, you've got a really hard sales pitch to the retailers you want to work with, because your pitch to a clothing retail is very different than your pitch to a sit-down restaurant and to a coffee shop and across the gamut. So been dead set for quite a while on building this solution, and had applied to YC a couple of times with this vision in mind. When the traction in coffee started to take off, and realizing what we had and the ability to deliver that, a similar experience at a smaller scale, I suppose. But honestly, there are maybe one or two other items people purchase as often as they purchase coffee. So we do get to impact people's almost daily habits, I'd say, as much as we can with their phones.
What attracted you to coffee? It seems like a crowded space. I don't know, with Starbucks and everything. But how did you think you could take it?
Yeah, so I think at some point we came to the realization, we had launched, by the way, in multiple verticals. So we had a number of coffee shops on board with this app, but we also had a couple of clothing retailers. We had some pizza shops, burrito shops. We were just trying to piecemeal everything together, and it was very clear about 3 or 4 months in that coffee had the most traction. So I started to put my head down and try to understand why that was. Starbucks, to your point, right? Like why would we go after this market when there's such a behemoth there? Starbucks had all but validated this experience, right? So they actually have the most used payment app in the country, in the US here. So while Alipay and WeChat Pay and all those other kind of apps exist in other countries and are far and away the most used payment apps, Americans love coffee and they like to skip the line and save money. So Starbucks actually has a stronghold there. But what most people don't realize is just how small of a market share they have in the broader landscape of coffee. So independent coffee shops, which is just about everyone other than Starbucks and Dunkin', do about $20 billion a year in the US. So there's a really hefty market there that was being overlooked by a lot of these other products. So we saw our in right there and decided to pivot all the way into coffee, because we had already built this experience. We'd already started to gain traction, and we could actually arm these local merchants with something that they could never build themselves. And even if they could, there may not be a need for it on an individual basis. But when it becomes a marketplace, there's the potential for that network effect that we're still building towards.
It was really like saving time, skipping the line, and not exactly like delivery, like a DoorDash. It's more like still utilizing local coffee shops.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm not sold on delivery with coffee. I think there are a number of places testing it, Starbucks being one of them, partnering with Uber Eats. But if you look at like the mobile ordering space itself, it's seemingly overlooked, coffee is, because they were so focused on A, kind of a land grab, get everyone that you can, right? And B, logistics oriented. They're all delivery for the most part. There were very few products early days that were focused just on pickup, and even fewer that a coffee shop could afford given their average ticket size. So that was our in.
How did you develop your MVP, like minimum viable product, to sort of test it out in the early days to make sure you had market validation? Did you have to build your own like payment system, and did you have to deal with transferring money to the shops? How did you like find shortcuts there?
Yeah, I mean, we're still finding shortcuts there. So we actually originally launched, the initial vertical was actually, if you guys have ever been to Charlotte, they love their breweries in the city. So there's about a brewery every half mile, I feel like. So we launched the beta brewery tour, and we launched this experience where you could order your beer on your phone. And although that was fun, the traction just wasn't, there wasn't really much there. So we ended up launching the beta coffee tour, and that's where things started to take shape. But to your question around payments, so we started by using Stripe, and that was just very clearly the easiest way to enable mobile payments, and still probably is today. Don't currently use Stripe. The whole reason Daniel and I even met in the first place was at Square. For distribution purposes, it made a lot more sense for us to partner with a company like Square, because they ultimately enable the point of sale for about 90% of the coffee shops that we work with. So it's best to partner with them as we continue to scale up. But yeah, we really kind of pieced it together in phases, and it wasn't pretty. I taught myself Photoshop to figure out the UI, and that's still a work in progress today. We're still manually processing deposits in some cases on a couple of merchants, which far less than what we used to. By doing that every Sunday, my whole day was shot basically processing deposits. But yeah, I think in any way possible, we sort of hacked together a working product and kept evolving from there.
Did you build the software yourself, or did you hire others?
Yeah, so easily the luckiest thing to happen in the history of our company is myself and my co-founder, James, meeting. I had originally hired James on Upwork to build the merchant side of the product. I don't know how to code personally. And he had just quit his job at a development shop where he was building products for really big companies, but not seeing a lot of validation from it, right? They'd pay a lot of money for one version of an app, right? So he left to start his own, where he would actually work through the life cycle of a product with a company. I was his first and last client. He ended up just coming right on board about a month in. We just decided to split the company and build it together, and we've been together ever since.
Are you in the same city? Because usually Upwork is like hiring people remotely. Mm-hmm. How do you coordinate there?
Yeah, so we weren't in the same city, but James is in a car right now moving to Charlotte to be with the team. So we had worked for about a year together remotely. When we got into Y Combinator, we obviously both moved to San Francisco. And at the end of YC, when we finished our raise, we ended up hiring here in Charlotte. We found the talent that we needed here, decided to set up shop, and James is moving here now.
You're not in San Francisco currently. You moved back to Charlotte.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess the strategy for the company, are any plans to move to California? I would say that there's this pressure a lot of the time when you move to California to stay here. So you moved back.
Oh, yeah.
Did you feel that pressure at all, or?
We felt that pressure. We certainly had a number of different opinions shared with us from a few partners at Y Combinator, some conflicting. We came really close, to be honest, to staying. James and I both had very serious conversations with our respective wives and addressed it as a potential decision to make. But it actually became very clear as we began fundraising and speaking with angels who would eventually put money in, that there was not only a lack of expectation that we would be in California, but an expectation that we wouldn't be. Just given what we're building and given our strategy for what we're building, our approach is quite literally the opposite of a Postmates or a DoorDash, in that we are not building an army of people to do this. We feel that we can do this with a lean team by operating efficiently as folks who are really motivated to contact a very specific subset of a market, right? Being coffee shops, getting really good at that and not needing to be knocking on doors, which is incredibly ineffective. We've obviously tried it. You can close sales that way, but not efficiently. So instead, we operate almost solely through our computers and through our phones to sell coffee shops. So the expectation as we were working with investors was really that we would be in a market that would be affordable, because we didn't need to be in a San Francisco per se.
What's your strategy for growth? Like, it sounds like you do a lot of your work remotely instead of actually physically going to those coffee shops, door to door. Do you have directories of coffee shops and then their email and then ask them for a call, or what exactly is your approach?
Yeah, so I've shared this in a couple of different platforms, and this is likely one of the points that YC clung to during our interview process that they likely enjoyed, was just what we would be willing to do to grow in a fashion that may not be considered scalable, but might actually be. So for the first year that we were operating as kind of a coffee specific product, with the help, I can't stress this enough, the help of friends and family, like I can't even count how many people helped us with this. We've pinned every coffee shop in America on Google Maps, and we've exported all of that information into a series of Google Sheets and now a CRM system that we use, and scraped the internet for as much information as we could find about each location. Email address, phone number, obviously Google Maps has that, but most importantly is the owner's name. Because if you can address someone personally with a name, the close rate is far higher than when they're not listed anywhere. That can be some painstaking work. It has taken a long time. We're still filling out profiles to this day. As we find new information about shops, or as new shops open, we found that Instagram's an interesting place to sell. It's actually really effective because of how engaged consumer-facing company like a coffee shop is. But we did spend a fair amount of time gathering that database, if you will, and now we've been tapping into it in any way possible.
And are you using UpWork to to hire people for some of that data gathering, data organization?
We did early on. We actually found someone local in Charlotte who was a student, and I thought I personally could crush through profiles relatively quickly, but this guy was moving at lightning speed. He ended up taking a job with Red Hat, I think, full-time after graduation. Unfortunately, we hadn't raised any money at that point, but if I could get him back, I would.
Nice. And what's your pitch when you reach out to coffee shops to partner with you?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very different than what the early kind of mobile ordering apps had to do. So actually, I had a chance to meet with Evan Moore from DoorDash, Max Mullen at Instacart, but all of them had such a very different experience because they had to explain what it was back in their early days, right? And right now, there's no need for us to go into the depths of why mobile ordering would be important to a coffee shop. It's more about why the product that we've built is the right one for them. It's not as if coffee shops haven't had access to any sort of mobile ordering platform for the last 5 to 10 years. It's that none of them were tailored to kind of the unique workflow that exists inside of a coffee shop, and very specifically, hot temperature items like lattes are best served when the shot is almost immediately pulled off the espresso machine, right? And the customer needs to be there in order to enjoy the best possible experience with that beverage. And Starbucks had a hard time when they first launched their mobile app and delivering this experience. We even benefited from some of their lessons learned. But we explained to them more about, why this product has been tailored to that experience, what sort of checkpoints exist inside the user experience that warns them when they're ordering an item that's best served at a certain temperature. And then on the fly, just very quickly having a system in place that doesn't necessarily require new hardware. So while a pizza shop might have an extra counter somewhere, coffee shops tend to run small and most of the counter space is taken. So that was one of the biggest reasons why we decided to partner with the Square, where it could operate entirely on the existing point of sale system they already had, because it's an iPad, right? And you can run it simultaneously, multiple applications. So that's really where the pitch focuses. Obviously, questions come left and right to a varying degree, but overall, it's the general direction.
Sorry, help me understand a little bit. What's like the key benefit that you would highlight? Is it like saving time, or just more orders, more money coming in? Like you mentioned this like tailoring fit aspect.
So we actually don't even, I mean, we do reference the benefit, obviously. What I guess I mean by that early preamble was that they know what the benefit is of mobile ordering. They know that they lose customers, and we use this experience quite a bit. And when we do get into the discussion of benefits, we talk about retention more than anything, because we have so much anecdotal feedback from both shop owners and users that they prefer, be it coffee shop X, right? But when they only have, let's say, 10 minutes between a meeting, the underlying desire is caffeine, right? So they're going to get caffeine any way that they can within that 10-minute window that they have. And usually that translates to them having to go to Starbucks or to Dunkin' or to Pete's, right? And ordering ahead with their mobile app because they know it exists. They know they can skip the line. Their coffee will be available to them in the window that they have. And what Cloosiv has enabled is the ability for that customer to now always get the coffee that they want, and for that coffee shop to retain their customers more often.
I see. Really, it's you're kind of you have a network or a platform for not like the main ones like Starbucks or Pete's, but the long tail of coffee shops can be within this network that allows for the order ahead mobile ordering experience,
Yep.
and then that allows for retention because the clients are getting exactly what they want.
And that's the current state. I'd say it's obviously our goal here is discovery, right? Creating a platform that becomes synonymous with independent coffee, so that when you're traveling to Charlotte or Boston or San Francisco, whatever it may be, you're looking to Cloosiv to find the coffee in that city, wherever you are, and ordering ahead from there as well.
What kinds of advice did you get from the people at Y Combinator, aside from like Sam explaining kind of how to get into the program? But like once you got in, like what kind of captured your imagination?
Because we had a bit of traction, it was more centered around how to scale this. And I'd say very early on, we haven't really touched on this, but I was also dead set, because we were supporting local merchants, on being creative with our pricing model and offering kind of a flat rate fixed fee model, not percentage based, but just, call it $99 a month for a subscription to Cloosiv. And we had tried every possible price point at this stage, and had the very, I guess, direct conversation with, I remember it very clearly, with Dalton Caldwell, as a partner at YC, that recreating the wheel in this space is irrelevant, that there are so many companies that have proven valid percentage-based models, especially with mobile ordering type products, that fighting that would only hurt us. So we tore off the Band-Aid, changed our pricing, didn't lose a single customer, which is shocking. I didn't sleep for a couple of nights before sending that announcement. But what that helped us realize was what our value proposition was. And we still hadn't gotten it to this point, but what we realized was this tailored product for coffee shops was the value, this ability to control their inventory, to at least manage to a certain extent the customer's experience, and help deliver a positive one. Because at the end of the day, if you order a latte and it's cold, you're not blaming Cloosiv, you're blaming the coffee shop, and that's not fair, right? And it's really not fair, because it's likely the customer's fault anyways. But regardless, we did find that by changing our pricing, we stumbled upon what our value proposition was, and kept moving from there.
What was this change in pricing? So initially it was $99 a month subscription for the coffee shops to participate in the platform. Mm-hmm. But then how did you shift that? Is it like pay per coffee sold, like transaction fee?
Yeah, so we changed it to a processing fee, which is standard across this industry in general. So we changed it to 10% processing. That includes payment processing, so the rate that we pay to Square. But it helped. It elevated our revenue overnight to a more sustainable growth plan, I suppose. We would, on paper, the fixed fee model looks great when you're at scale, but you'll never get there, right? If you don't make enough money before it. So it was the right decision to make. It's just we needed an extra push, and YC was there to give it.
So did you find it's easier to like onboard new coffee shops because they don't have to like sign up for that subscription type thing, but instead they only pay when like people are using the app?
It doesn't change entirely, just because even before we were just withholding the money from orders that were processed. So it was just that they knew moving into the month, right, that they would never pay more than $99, right? And that's not true anymore. They'll pay 10% of what we can get them in GMV, in volume. So it hasn't, I guess, adjusted much. Our onboarding experience, we've always focused on being as easy as possible. So it hasn't been too disruptive, I'd say.
One thing I was actually playing with was the app, and the design is fairly simple. Like, it actually kind of reminds me of like almost an exploratory way to find like local coffee shops that are not Starbucks and not Dunkin' Donuts. So you're creating almost like a brand that's kind of outside of I call those like the mega brands.
Yeah.
But like you can kind of find some fun coffee shops that are really interesting. And it, like just looking, it shows you like the miles and how far you are away. It shows you what you can order. Where do you see yourselves taking it? Like I do see a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential in like what you're designing. It's very, very fun. It makes me want to go to a coffee shop and pick up coffee. Kind of like it kind of implies like, hey, check out this cool new coffee shop. Unlike a Starbucks, which is you know what you're going to get. You know the experience you're going to have.
It's funny you mentioned the app. We've gone through so many iterations. I alluded to it earlier that I had taught myself Photoshop to build this, and we're still there now. We have finally gotten to the next iteration, which will include photography, which is requested so often. And it's interesting to me because it's so hard to design a product with such inconsistency. I think we actually had an opportunity here. The founders of Airbnb speak at Y Combinator to kick off the batch, and they referenced the story that I think a lot of people have probably heard around, you know, the initial photography at Airbnb and how they ended up having to fly to New York to take the photos themselves. And it's always been a fear of mine, just because I'm not a designer by trade. Integrating photography can be so difficult, but customers want to see where they're going. So to your point around discovery, not only seeing, you know, fun coffee shops that are around you, but being able to visualize it will also help. And then moving that even further into the product photography phase, so providing imagery, because not everyone knows what an Americano is or what a mocha is, and using it as a platform to educate users of the beverages that are available and what's unique about each coffee shop. What we want to do is ultimately create this platform where coffee shops can build their brand on top of it, right? Anywhere that we can integrate that sort of the quirkiness about their own brands and keep it consistent to some extent from a user experience perspective, we'll attempt to do. It's just taking some time, obviously, to get there.
Could you tell me about the journey of how you got here? Like what inspired you to like start your own business, and then also like how did you finance yourself in the early days when you were trying to get it off the ground before you got fundraising?
So I will say this is the opposite of most stories. I mean, I had this idea originally, that original kind of grand idea back when I was in college. When I was working at Apple, they rolled out the Apple Store app, and I think it still exists today. You can walk into an Apple Store, open this Apple Store app, scan a barcode on like a Beats by Dre headphone, and walk out of the store. Pay for it on your iTunes account. Never talk to the sales associate. That's what I was, and I thought that was cool. But that was where the general concept of aggregation came in. Like, why can't I just use the same app to go to Starbucks and Target and Sears? Right? Like, it didn't make sense to me why we would continue to proliferate all of these third-party apps. But at the same time, this is the dawn of Amazon, and every retailer felt that they needed to compete, and the only way to compete was to build their own app. And it just flooded the app store with all these white-labeled products that don't necessarily get used very often. So I had this idea back I'd say that was 2011. I didn't do anything with it. I graduated college, became a management consultant, did the whole Monday through Thursday thing for several years. And it was actually kind of a series of fortunate events that led to the company I was working for. It's a company called North Highland. It's a management consulting firm. Ended up announcing that they would run an internal, I guess, innovation contest, incubation thing. I don't know. I don't really remember what they were coining it as. But at the end of the day, what they were willing to do was invest $300,000 into the winner to start their own business, which is a crazy thing in hindsight that they would do. I was the first winner. They gave me $300,000 as an investment, to start my own business. So it was really kind of risk-free from that perspective for me. Obviously, having been doing this now for almost 3 years, I can say I would likely not start my business that way again, without knowing what was ahead of me. But I'm glad that it was an opportunity to sort of test a few different things, and it gave us the runway we needed to figure out what that product was going to look like.
In terms of iteration, because you only had $300,000, which is a lot. That's a lot of money.
It is, yeah.
How did you iterate? And were you cognizant? Did you have a I'm sure that was like the salary for everybody at the time. You knew that this was the app, you knew that this was the idea, and you just started to execute, and you released like the first product when.
So that was the weird thing. And looking back on it, it feels, I mean, we were very lucky about some of the decisions that were made. I do wish we made decisions faster in a certain capacity. I'm sure most founders would say the same thing. Hindsight being 2020. It's interesting though, because I effectively had to kind of I'd say it, unlearn how to be a management consultant. So if you guys are familiar with the practice, it's very polish oriented. I was working with Fortune 500 clients who, if you delivered anything less than perfection, it was unacceptable because they were paying you a lot of money to do that. Whereas a startup, right, like you got to put something out there. It doesn't matter if it looks like garbage. You got to test if it's going to work. So I sort of dove headfirst into that mindset, but it took a lot of me removing my own expectations to get to a point where we could build something and ship it and iterate. For instance, like, I mean, the first thing I remember vividly, the first thing I read was the Lean Startup, and starting to understand what this was going to entail. And I realized that I had to pick something to start working on, right? Like I had to actually move in a direction. It didn't matter what direction, I just had to do something. And that's when we came up with that brewery concept, because of where we were. We thought that, hey, I'd say it was just trial and error, and we got lucky reading the right things, I suppose. We did get, I personally got good advice from a couple of folks who had been there and done that, from the entrepreneurial community here in Charlotte and Atlanta. But I think there were plenty of pitfalls that we could have avoided as well. So
one of the advice you hear a lot in Y Combinator talks is talk to customers. Mm-hmm. What were some of your strategies to do that?
I used to stand outside of retail stores asking if I could borrow someone for 10 seconds of their time, that I was trying to start a company and I just wanted to survey them about their desires as a shopper. Did this for a couple of weeks. I remember interviewing about 110 people. That was painstaking. I recommend
that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are like shopping malls, and they were brief conversations. But whenever someone asks me now, especially here in Charlotte, like what to do, like what's the first step? That's my advice at this point, is just start talking to random people. Like you're never going to see them again, right? So you have to have the confidence to just ask for their time. Most people are pleasant and willing to help, especially if you explain yourself and you don't look like you're homeless, I suppose. But I think that ultimately that was the most beneficial kind of first practice that we went through to get things started.
Who have been some of your mentors in this process?
Well, here in Charlotte, there's like one genuine VC. His name's Chris Langford. He was the head of Lowe's Ventures. And given that we were building a retail product in his backyard, he and I met like the second week this had happened, when I raised that money. And we've been meeting ever since. He's just been a really good resource to lean on. He has a perspective more aligned with Silicon Valley than Charlotte, so that's really helpful. I've found that the folks on the West Coast tend to be far more ambitious, and I think that it leads to, I guess, negative press in a lot of ways when things don't work. But I guess I align with. So Chris has been really helpful. I had mentioned earlier, Lackey Groom from Stripe is monumental in helping us get from point A to point B, facilitating introductions, just helping to embed me into San Francisco as best he could. Those were all really helpful activities. And then, locally, we actually have it's called Founders Lunch. There's about maybe 25 of us, because that's all there is in Charlotte. But we meet every month, the founders group, and it actually kind of reminds me a bit of YC dinners, I guess, commingled with a therapy session. But we just talk. If someone has a problem they want to come up, they want to address, the other founders are able to offer their advice, their feedback. So there are a couple of folks within that group that have been so helpful in terms of helping me skip some potholes and off perspectives as they've scaled too.
So it sounds like you've utilized kind of a community of people that are entrepreneurs with kind of your mindset to support you and help you like overcome problems. So you're not just sort of the lone entrepreneur trying to build something on your own, but you've got a support system behind you.
And I can't tell this enough. Like that's what YC does so well too, especially during each batch, right? When you're there for 3 months, you meet other folks who are enduring the same thing. It's funny because when James and I got there, we'd been running our business, for a year and a half at that point. And there were people between like, when you get accepted, they have a kickoff that same week. There were people changing their ideas between the interview and the kickoff, right? So we didn't have anything. So we were at a point where we were able to offer some advice from our own experiences, but then you've got all these really great former founders or partners that are there that are able to offer their perspectives that they've seen further along the journey. So I'd say just between those, getting a lot of feedback from folks.
So it looks like it was a really successful experience there on TechCrunch. This is public. You raised over $1 million. Congratulations. And that was like recent. That is amazing. Yeah. And then Thank you. Says here, I'm just reading the TechCrunch stats. It said, your growth has been really fast. A lot of transactions have happened. What's the number of transactions you guys are up to?
We're over 600,000 now in volume processed, which I find to be far more impactful just because that's volume that we're processing on behalf of these coffee shops. So we've helped facilitate, over 600,000 in transactions for them, which makes, our team feel really good about what we're building.
Yeah, actually there was something here. It says Cloosiv founder Tim tells me they've processed over 35,000 orders so far. So you're
okay.
up.
I did. So we just cleared 100,000 recently. So we're growing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then
is that like on a monthly basis? Or?
No, that's in totality.
So you have a real product, you have real users. It must feel so good to like go to a coffee shop and pick up a coffee with the product. I mean, I see people all day long doing that in Starbucks, and it's like there's a need there. There's like a real need in the coffee shop space. Mm-hmm. And I do feel like there's an educational component because there's so many exotic drinks, right? There's a lot that people are unaware of. And I do think that there's an educational component because a lot of people don't know coffee. Yeah. They really don't, right? It's not like, how did you learn about it? You Google it, like, what is this drink versus that drink?
Yeah. So it's funny because, I'm very transparent about, we didn't set out to build a coffee product. We did set out to build a product for merchants of all sizes. That's always been a part of our mission, and to be able to support local merchants, it's funny because, and I'm sort of taking a side road here to get to the answer, but I'm intrigued by a lot of entrepreneurs on the West Coast. I think it's incredible what they've built and what they're building currently. But honestly, like, especially with my own experience, I've never seen entrepreneurs like local business owners. The crap they have to deal with, I know it's not at scale, so it's a bit different, and the problems are very different, but just to see the resilience of some of these folks who have not only, sustained a single location, but have created chains, right? Local chains with, 5 to 10 shops, and they're building these really healthy, what's commonly referred to as lifestyle businesses, right? I think it's really impressive. So the opportunity to build that up and support them is really a key driver behind what we're doing. And I think that so long as we keep our perspective aligned to that, we'll continue to be happy to be building Cloosiv.
What do you feel most grateful for in your journey so far, starting up Cloosiv?
Oh, and this is what any other, I talk a lot about this, any other ecosystem, quote unquote, that wants to say that they want to mimic Silicon Valley, the best thing you can do is be as open to connecting other individuals. I've never encountered anything like it, to be entirely honest. The folks, you're the 2 degrees of separation from anyone. Meeting Daniel off chance, you just at a Square developer conference, and him being willing to submit a referral to Y Combinator on our behalf, right? Like those little things, it doesn't take much time for them, but it goes a really long way. And I've found that in San Francisco in general, that type of behavior is far more common. So I'm trying to bring that back here in Charlotte. Anywhere that I can help anyone in an entrepreneur capacity, I'm more than willing to, just because I can see how effective it can be. Like I said earlier, like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Sam, right? And his willingness to connect me to Lackey, who connected me to Laura, right? And on down the line. Those connections were so important to our health and our ability to continue to build something. I think that I'm most grateful for that, really.
And then how do you celebrate, like when you hit milestones, like when you were able to raise the money out of Y Combinator? It sounds like it was like more than $1 million or $1 million. What did you do?
For people who like reached out that have followed along, like it's fundraising in particular is an interesting milestone, because to be honest, it feels almost negative in many ways, because we aren't able to build a business that's self-sustaining just yet, right? I'm fully aware that we could have done that in a certain capacity, but we'd never scale the way that we intend to. So with ambition in mind, there's no reason to view it negatively. But I guess I say that to say that we don't really celebrate things like that, but we did just install a bell in the office, which I'm pretty sure our neighbors are going to kill us over. So anytime that we make a new sale, we get the bell rung. And it's funny, the first 2 sales of 2020 was our new engineer. He had gone home for the holidays and ended up selling his local 2-chain kind of coffee shop, and he got to be the first to ring the bell in 2020. So we try to keep the mood light in the office as it relates to acquiring new shops and supporting them. Less so focused on fundraising. Our goal is really to get to a point where we are self-sustaining, and any future fundraising would be focused on rapid scale.
Do you find your wife is supportive in terms of this entrepreneurship journey?
She does not get enough credit. I can tell you with 100% certainty that we would not be here if it were not for her. And I'm sure James would say the same about his wife, Mai. I mean, they see the worst of it in terms of the downs more than the ups, right? Because when you're celebrating with your team all is well, your wife isn't there. She's there that evening, when you lost your biggest customer and you're on the edge of tears on the couch, right? So to have someone who's just been so willing to support this desire to build Cloosiv and to endure it for so long, it's, as everyone says, that being a founder is lonely, but being the spouse of a founder is likely just as lonely or more lonely, right? Because she wants to go out on the weekends and be active, right? And there are weekends where that's just not possible because of what's going on at Cloosiv, right? And the need to be there. And to be so willing to help in that regard has just meant the world. So I'd say we wouldn't be here without her.
What's your vision of the future, like 5-10 years out from now?
I actually refer to this quite a few times in our demo day pitch, but I almost paint the picture now as an attempt to build the largest coffee chain in the world by using software to connect these existing shops, these local, it's not even local mom and pops, right? We can support chains for all we care, right? It's supporting anyone that isn't the global behemoth that is Starbucks, right? Because it's crazy to me that on a global scale, Starbucks doesn't have a single competitor. They have competitors domestically in the US, they have them regionally. Depending on where they are, they've got obviously the rise of Luckin Coffee in Asia has been an interesting thing to watch from a distance, but they don't really have someone that competes with them at that level across the world. And we feel like we're building this platform to a point where we can actually give them a run for their money and give people another option for coffee wherever they are.
When you talk about focus, I think about Steve Jobs and how he spoke about focus at Apple and how they would say no, and he would say no to a lot of projects. And listening to you, I'm like, there's a lot of opportunity out there for just the product you're building, the piece of software you're building. And the way I kind of see it is, it's a very focused platform for coffee, which is phenomenal, but it could be applied to other industries if you build it right. Whether you do that or not, it's super interesting.
Yeah, I told, during the fundraising process, I'd say, listen, like, there's a really big business in coffee. It's the most habitual purchase people make every single day. That doesn't mean that once we scale this, there's not an opportunity to go elsewhere. And to support other verticals within retail. And by focusing in on a single sort of sub-vertical, we're able to create this really curated experience and make it as close to perfect as possible before having to consider those other avenues.
This is a question I've been thinking about for myself last few days. And it is, if you visualize yourself December 31st, 2020, and you are kind of sitting quietly and you say to yourself, Tim, 2020, that was the best year ever. What would have to happen for you to say that?
We will have accomplished our goal as a company of having 1,000 active coffee shops on the platform that month. That is very clearly our target this year. It's having 1,000 monthly active coffee shops and growing from there, which would also equate to profitability. So it would also mean a few things. I guess on a personal level, have been successful that year. Should I have slowed down the way I intend to? I've never done New Year's resolutions before, but I decided to this year and devote an hour of my day every day to reading. It was something that I was very passionate about growing up and through school and in my early career. And obviously, starting a company limits your ability to do something like that. But I've also felt like it's also limited my ability to grow on a personal level. So devoting more time and being able to accomplish that. We're only 9 days in, but we're all right so far. We haven't failed just yet. So if I can accomplish that target as well, I'd feel good.
When do you do your reading? Like in the morning or in the evening or lunch?
I'm most effective in the morning working, but so I've set up 2 half-hour blocks throughout the day as a point of reflection and just being able to take press pause and perhaps something will percolate that I've been working on within that time off that I can go back to when I'm done.
And are you reading on a Kindle or an iPad or like actual books?
I'm terrible. I was an English major and just books it's really hard for me to get away from. I've tried a Kindle. Maybe I need to try it again because it is such a waste.
Thank you so much for doing the interview. This was awesome.
Yeah.